My name is Solomon Williams, and I'm 69 years old. My son-in-law called me a worthless burden and a broke old man. He and my daughter whispered plans to forge documents to have me committed to a nursing home, all just to steal the small house they thought I owned. They had no idea I was a secret millionaire. And they definitely had no idea I was the silent majority shareholder in my son-in-law's own company. I let them think they were winning. I played the part of the confused, pathetic old man right up until the moment my lawyer and the police walked into the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta. Before I continue this story, please let me know what city you are listening from in the comments below. And please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you believe that underestimating your elders is a mistake they will live to regret. It all started last Tuesday. I was walking up the path to my daughter Maya's house feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the Atlanta sun. In my hand I clutched a thick leather-bound folder. It felt heavy, not with paper but with possibility. I couldn't wait to see their faces. Inside that folder was a new life. My younger brother Josiah had passed away. I had spent the last decade thinking he was lost, broke, maybe even living on the streets after a terrible fight we'd had. But Josiah, always full of surprises, had died a very wealthy man, and he had left me everything. A stunning villa on the ocean in Hilton Head, South Carolina. 2 sprawling apartments right here in downtown Atlanta. My mind was racing. This was it. This was the answer. I knew Maya and her husband Ryan were struggling. I lived in their guest room. I saw the bills they left on the counter. I saw the way Ryan's jaw clenched when he thought no one was looking. I'd seen the quiet, constant stress on Maya's face. This inheritance, this could finally give them peace. It could finally let me help them in a way I never could on my meager retired teacher's pension. I was so excited. I was about to give my daughter the world. I raised my hand to knock on the front door, my knuckles just inches from the wood. But the sound of Ryan's voice, sharp and laced with pure panic, stopped me cold. It came clear through the open living room window. "I don't care. I need $50,000 right now, Maya. Not next week, not next month, right now. Do you not understand how much trouble I'm in?" I froze. This was worse than I thought. I heard my daughter's voice, thin and terrified. A little sob broke through her words. "I know, Ryan, I know, but we've maxed out every single card. I've tried to get a loan. They won't approve us. What else can I do?" There was a desperate pause. Maybe I can ask Dad." Ryan's laugh wasn't a laugh. It was a bark. A short, ugly, contemptuous sound that hit me harder than a slap. "Ask your dad." Ask Solomon. Are you kidding me? What's that old man got? A dusty pension check, a few bucks saved from his substitute teaching gigs. Maya, your father is a burden. He is not a solution. I am sick. Sick to death of seeing his pathetic, shuffling face in my house every single day. I need him gone. A nursing home, a cheap retirement village. I don't care where. His presence, his poverty. It's embarrassing me in front of my partners. I swear, Maya, if he doesn't leave on his own, I will find a way to make him leave. I stood frozen on the doormat. The heavy folder in my hand suddenly felt like a block of ice. A burden. Embarrassing. Pathetic. The words echoed in the quiet afternoon, sucking all the air out of my lungs. This was the man I lived with. This was the man my daughter had married. This was the man who just 5 years ago, after my Serafina died, had wrapped his arm around my shoulder. He had looked at me with such sincerity in his eyes. "Dad, Sol." He'd said, his voice thick with fake concern. "You can't be alone in that big house. It's not right. You have to come live with us. We're family. We'll take care of you." I see now what that care really meant. I wasn't family. I was inventory. I had sold my home. The home Serafina and I had built over 40 years. The home where we raised Maya. The home where my wife took her last breath. I sold it, and I gave Maya half the proceeds, $100,000, to help them get started. I thought it was a gift. I realize now they just saw it as the first installment. I moved into their guest room, a small cramped space by the kitchen, thinking I was helping, thinking I was easing their burden. I never realized I was the burden. I listened, my heart pounding, waiting, praying for Maya to defend me, waiting for my daughter, my only child, to say, "Don't talk about my father that way." But all I heard was a weak, broken sob. "Okay, Ryan," she whispered. "Okay, I'll I'll figure something else out. Please just don't be mad. My heart didn't just break in that moment. It turned to stone. She had made her choice. A cold, sharp clarity washed over me, the kind I used to feel in a difficult classroom when I knew I had to take absolute control. My hand, which had been trembling, became perfectly still. I looked down at the inheritance documents, the villa, the apartments, the wealth that could solve all their problems in an instant. Very slowly, very deliberately, I slid the heavy folder back into my old worn leather briefcase. I zipped it shut. I took one deep breath, letting the mask of the pathetic old man settle back onto my features. I erased the excitement from my face. I erased the hope. I forced my shoulders to slump, my feet to shuffle. I waited 30 seconds. Then I raised my hand and knocked on the door, softly, weakly, exactly as a burden would. I opened the front door. The sound of the latch clicking open seemed to echo unnaturally loud in the silent house. Ryan was on the sofa, his face lit by the cold blue glow of his smartphone. He didn't look up when I walked in. He just grunted, his thumb swiping angrily at the screen. "Oh, you're back," he said. His voice was flat, bored, as if my arrival was an inconvenience. "Dinner's on the table." I saw a blur of motion from the kitchen. It was Maya. She darted across the hallway and disappeared into the master bathroom, but I saw her face. Her eyes were red, her cheeks puffy and wet with fresh tears. The bathroom door clicked shut, and a moment later the loud whir of the exhaust fan started up. A pathetic, desperate attempt to muffle the sound of her crying. She hadn't defended me, and now she was hiding from me. I stood in the hallway for a moment, my old briefcase still in my hand, the one holding the documents for my new life. Ryan hadn't moved. He was completely absorbed in his phone, radiating an aura of pure, vibrating anger. I walked past him. I didn't exist to him. I was just a piece of furniture that had learned to walk. Dinner was a single plate on the kitchen counter, a slice of cold, congealed lasagna still in its plastic wrap, a silent, leftover insult. I took the plate and sat down alone at the big dining table. The table Serafina and I had bought 40 years ago at an auction. It felt impossibly large, impossibly empty. I ate the cold food mechanically. My appetite was gone, replaced by a cold knot in my stomach. I was chewing, but I couldn't taste anything. My gaze drifted to the kitchen trash can by the door. It was overflowing. Ryan was always careless, always leaving his messes for Maya or me to clean up. But this time his carelessness was a gift. I saw the torn edges of official-looking letters. I saw the bright red ink that banks use when they are no longer asking politely. I saw the familiar blue and white square of the American Express logo, the bold letters of Capital One. I put my fork down. I got up slowly, letting my joints ache a little more than they needed to, playing the part of the old man, even when no one was watching. I walked to the trash can and nudged the top letter with my finger. The fragments were shredded, but not well. They were torn apart by a man in a blind panic. I could read the words. Final notice. I dug a little deeper past the empty pizza box and coffee grounds. Another piece. Acceleration notice. Demand for immediate payment. And then the one that made my blood run cold. A thick, cream-colored envelope torn in half. I could clearly see the word foreclosure. My God. This wasn't just trouble. This wasn't just $50,000. This was a complete financial collapse. Ryan wasn't just a bully in a panic. He was a desperate animal backed into a corner. And a desperate animal will do anything to escape. He would sell his soul. He would sell his wife. He would crush a pathetic old burden who stood in his way. I pushed the trash back down. I went to my small guest room and closed the door. I lay on my bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The house was silent again, but now it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was the silence of a trap about to be sprung. I heard Ryan and Maya's bedroom door close. I heard their voices muffled but sharp, whispered, arguing. It went on for an hour, then silence. I waited. I waited until I heard the deep, steady breathing of Ryan's sleep from down the hall. 1 in the morning, then 2. At 2:05 a.m. I got up. I did not touch the new shiny smartphone Ryan had gifted me last Christmas, the one he was always encouraging me to use. "It's easier for you to use, Dad. It's got a big screen," he'd said. I always knew that was a lie. A gift with strings, a tracking device, a leash. Instead, I went to my old, worn leather briefcase, the one I'd carried to my history classes for 30 years. I pressed a small, hidden latch on the inside lining. A false bottom popped open. Inside was an old black Samsung flip phone. My safe phone. The one nobody knew about. I walked into the small guest bathroom, closed the door, and turned on the fan. The loud whir covered any sound I might make. I flipped the phone open. The small green screen glowed to life. I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang once. A voice answered instantly, alert, sharp, and professional. "Thompson." My voice was not the voice of the shuffling old man. It was the voice that used to command a lecture hall, low, firm, and precise. "Andre, it's Saul Williams." There was a half-second of stunned silence. Then the voice on the other end erupted with warmth. "Mr. Williams, sir. It has been too long. Is everything all right? Are you okay? Do you need something?" "I'm fine, Andre. But I do need a favor. I need you to run a check on a man named Ryan Cunningham." "Cunningham," Andre repeated. "Got it. How deep do you want me to go, sir?" I thought of the shredded letters in the trash. I thought of the sound of my daughter's sobs. I thought of the words burden and pathetic and make him leave. "Go all the way, Andre," I said. "I want to know everything. I want to know where every single dollar came from and where every single dollar went. I want to know who he talks to, and I want to know who he's afraid of." "Consider it done, Mr. Williams. You'll have a full report by morning." "Thank you, son. I knew I could count on you." I snapped the phone shut and looked at my own tired 69-year-old face in the bathroom mirror. Ryan wanted to know what this old man had. He was about to find out. I stood by the window of that cramped guest room, my hand still holding the cold plastic of the flip phone. I stared out into this dark Atlanta street, but I wasn't seeing the pavement. I was seeing a classroom 20 years ago. Andre Thompson. Ryan thought he was smart. He thought he was dealing with a simple, broke old man. He had no idea who Andre was. He had no idea who I was. 20 years ago, Andre Thompson was just Dre. He was a kid in the back row of my 11th grade American history class at North Atlanta High. In a school full of privilege, Dre was on a scholarship. He was the poorest kid in the room. He wore the same pair of worn-out sneakers every single day, his jeans faded thin, his pencils sharpened down to the nub. But his eyes were electric. He was, without question, the most brilliant mind I had ever had the privilege to teach. He didn't just memorize dates. He understood why. He saw the patterns in history, the cycles of power and greed. He saw the world not just as it was, but as it could be. I remember the day he stayed after class clutching a stack of papers. He looked terrified but determined. "Mr. Williams," he'd said, his voice quiet, "I know this sounds crazy, but I have this idea. It's about protecting information, about cybersecurity." It was a new word back then. Most people weren't thinking about it, but Andre was. He laid out a business plan on my desk, a plan that was frankly genius. He needed capital. He needed servers. He needed someone, just one person, to believe in him. That same week, I had finalized the sale of a small parcel of land my father had left me out in Douglas County. It wasn't much, just a dusty patch of Georgia red clay. But the city was expanding. I got $50,000 for it. I looked at that check, and then I looked at Andre. I thought of all the polished, sharp-suited bankers who would laugh this brilliant, poor black kid right out of their shiny offices. The next day, I met him at a Waffle House. I didn't say much. I just slid a cashier's check across the sticky table. $50,000. His eyes went wide, and for a second I thought he was going to cry. I just put my hand over his. "Do something great with it, son," I told him. "That's all I ask." Andre did something great. The company he started in his dorm room, TechSec Holdings, is now a global cybersecurity firm. Its name is on the side of a skyscraper downtown. It's worth billions. Andre Thompson isn't Dre anymore. He's the 35-year-old billionaire CEO who advises governments. And me, I'm Solomon Williams, retired teacher, the man in the guest room, and I am the anonymous 20% founding shareholder of TechSec Holdings. I sit on the board under a proxy. My stock options alone are worth more than Ryan Cunningham could steal in 100 lifetimes. I am a multi-millionaire, perhaps 50 times over. And no one, not even my own daughter, knows. I never told them. It was Serafina's wish. My beautiful Serafina. She was a nurse. She spent her life in the trenches of human suffering. She saw what money did to people, not what poverty did, but what wealth did. She saw families tear each other apart over wills, She saw children who inherited fortunes become empty, hollow shells devoid of ambition or kindness. Soul, she used to tell me, her hand warm in mine as we sat on the porch of our old house. Let's never let that happen to Maya. Let her be hungry. Let her learn to work. Let her be real. So we were. We lived simply. We saved. We invested. But we never spent. We never showed it. We were the comfortable middle-class Williams family, the history teacher and the nurse. And I had another reason. I had seen it happen to my own blood, my brother Josiah. The inheritance I'd just received. It was a shock. I had spent the last 20 years believing Josiah had died broke and alone in some ditch. The money had poisoned him. It drove him to addiction to ruin. It's why we had that final terrible fight. It's why he disappeared. Serafina and I, we were so afraid of that happening to Maya. We agreed. The money from Andre's company would stay hidden, a secret safety net, but never a cushion. I looked around the small guest room, the second-hand dresser, the squeaky bed frame, the faded curtains. This was the life we chose. But as I stood there listening to the silence of the house, a new, terrible realization settled in my stomach. Serafina and I, we were wrong. We weren't protecting Maya. We were making her vulnerable. We thought hiding our wealth would make her strong, make her appreciate hard work. Instead, it made her desperate. It made her weak. It made her see a man like Ryan Cunningham with his flashy fake confidence and empty promises not as the predator he is, but as the provider I was pretending not to be. My secrecy didn't save my daughter. It fed her to the wolves. Ryan called me a burden. He called me pathetic. He thinks I'm a drain on his finances while he lives in a house that my money paid the down payment for, using electricity that my sacrifices kept on. He thinks he's stealing $15,000 from a poor old man. He has no idea he just declared war on the one person who could have actually saved him. He has no idea that the old man in the guest room owns more of this city than he could ever dream of. And he has no idea that my brother Josiah's final gift, that villa, those apartments, was just the gasoline being poured on a fire I had already decided to light. I didn't sleep. I don't think I even blinked. I just lay there listening to the sounds of the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the click of the air conditioner, and finally, around 4 a.m., the deep, rumbling snore from Ryan's bedroom. That was the signal. I got up moving without a sound. I didn't turn on a light. I dressed in the dark, my hands steady. I felt a cold, hard purpose settling into my bones. This wasn't just about anger anymore. This was about survival. At 5:45 a.m., I heard the faint thwack of the mail slot. The postman was early. Ryan usually got up around 7, grabbing the mail on his way to the kitchen, sorting through it like he owned the place. He always handed me my mail, usually just junk and a prescription notice, with a dismissive little smile. "Just this for you, Dad." Not today. I slipped out of my room and walked to the front door. The pile of letters lay on the floor mat. I picked them up. There was a glossy advertisement for a new grocery store. There were 2, maybe 3 letters with bright red past due windows addressed to Ryan Cunningham. My eyes passed over them, and then I saw it, a thin white envelope. The return address was from my pension fund's bank. My heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't received a paper statement in months. Ryan had insisted on switching everything to paperless for me. "It's better for the environment, Dad," he'd said. This one must have slipped through, a system error. A ghost in the machine. I tucked it under my shirt and walked back to my room, leaving Ryan's threatening letters right where they were on the floor. I locked my bedroom door. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the envelope. My name, my address. It looked so normal. But I felt a sense of dread so profound it made my hands shake. I tore it open. I unfolded the single sheet of paper. My eyes went straight to the summary box at the top. Previous balance, 87. $450.22. Current balance, 72. $450.22. I stared at the numbers. They didn't make sense. I hadn't touched that money. That was my emergency fund. That was Serafina's nest egg. I hadn't made a single withdrawal since she died. "Impossible," I whispered. I forced my eyes down to the transaction history. The list was long. It covered the last 6 months. Online transfer to external account, $300. 0. Online transfer to external account, $500. External withdrawal, $450. Online transfer to external account, $300. It went on and on and on, like 1,000 tiny cuts. A steady, methodical bleed. My mind raced, adding the numbers. It was $15,000. Gone. Siphoned out a little bit at a time, twice a week, every week, for 6 straight months. How could he have access? How could he bypass the security? And then I remembered. It was 3 months ago. I was sitting right here on this bed. Ryan came in smiling, holding a new smartphone. "Dad, Sol," he'd said, his voice full of that fake syrupy concern. "You shouldn't have to worry about paper statements or calling the bank. It's too much hassle. Let's get you set up with the new mobile app. It's so much easier. You can check your balance anytime you want." I remembered feeling old, incompetent, just like he wanted me to feel. "I don't know, Ryan," I'd told him. "All these new gadgets, I get confused." He'd laughed, a gentle, reassuring laugh. "Don't you worry about a thing. I'll do it all for you. I just need your social security number to verify your identity and your account number, okay? And just type in your PIN for the ATM card right here. Perfect. Now what do you want your new password to be? How about something simple like Maya's birthday? Great. I'll set it all up. See, all done." He had tapped away on the phone, his thumbs moving in a blur. He'd even pulled out his own phone, syncing them, he'd said, just making sure the settings are right. He hadn't been setting it up for me. He had been setting it up for him. He stole my identity. He stole my PIN. He cloned my access. He linked my retirement account, my life savings to his own. And I had sat there and thanked him for it. The small repeated withdrawals. They were a test. He was testing the system, testing me, seeing if the pathetic old man would even notice that his life was being drained away $300 at a time. He didn't just steal my money, he stole my trust. He weaponized my love for my daughter. He used my feigned incompetence as his cover. I looked at the statement, at the cold, hard proof of his betrayal. The $15,000 wasn't the goal. It was just the appetizer. The $50,000 he was screaming for yesterday, that was the main course. He wasn't asking for it. He was planning to take it. And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that once he had cleaned out my account, the burden in the guest room would become a problem he would need to solve permanently. I sat in the dark for hours, the bank statement crumpled in my fist. I heard the house stir. 7 a.m. I heard the front door open, the sound of Ryan grabbing his letters, a string of curses. Then the door slammed and he was gone. He hadn't even checked on Maya, who was still silent in her room. The morning dragged on. I heard Maya in the kitchen, the quiet sounds of her making coffee. She didn't knock on my door. She was too ashamed or too complicit. It didn't matter. They were the same thing now. At 10:30 a.m., the flip phone vibrated silently in my pocket. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. Andre. I walked back into the bathroom, closed the door, and turned on the fan. I flipped the phone open. "This is Solomon." The voice on the other end was not the warm, respectful Mr. Williams from the night before. This was the voice of Andre Thompson, the CEO, cold, precise, and grim. "Mr. Williams, I have the information you requested. Are you in a secure location?" "I am." I set my back against the tiled wall. "Sir, what I found is, it's not good. Your son-in-law Ryan Cunningham is not just in financial trouble. He's in a death spiral." I gripped the phone. "Tell me everything, Andre." "First," Andre said, "he's not just struggling at his job. He doesn't have one. Ryan Cunningham was fired from his position at the equity fund 8 months ago. 8 months. My mind instantly flashed to the bank statement. The thefts from my pension had started 6 months ago. The timeline was a perfect fit. He had burned through his own money, and then like a parasite, he had attached himself to me. "Why was he fired?" I asked, though I already dreaded the answer. "Embezzlement," Andre replied. "He was caught siphoning funds from a client's portfolio, $100,000 to be exact. The firm is conducting an internal investigation to avoid a scandal, which means they haven't gone to the police yet. They're trying to recover the money quietly, but they will. It's only a matter of time." A thief. My daughter was married to a common thief. "That's not the worst of it, sir," Andre continued, his voice dropping lower. "The $100,000 he stole, he didn't use it to buy a car or a house. He lost it, all of it, and then some." "What do you mean?" "Ryan Cunningham has a severe gambling problem. He's been betting heavily on offshore sports markets. The reason he's screaming for $50,000 isn't for a deal. He owes $250,000 to a private credit organization based out of the East Coast. My blood ran cold. I've been a teacher my whole life, but I'm not naive. I know what an East Coast credit organization means. It doesn't mean a bank. It means men in dark suits who don't care about credit scores. It means violence. Andre. Who is he being watched by? By them, sir. My team picked up digital chatter. They've given him a final deadline, this coming Monday, 48 hours from now. If he doesn't produce at least $50,000 as a show of good faith, they're going to liquidate his assets. And sir, I don't think they mean his house. The pieces slammed together in my mind with the force of a car crash. This wasn't about greed anymore. This wasn't about him being an arrogant, disrespectful fool who wanted a rich lifestyle. This was about terror. Ryan wasn't just trying to impress his partners. He was trying to save his own life. The plan to put me in a nursing home, it all made sense now. It wasn't just to get me out of the way. It was a desperate, frantic attempt to get power of attorney to seize my assets, to liquidate my home, my pension, everything, not for a better life, but to pay the men who were threatening to break his legs or worse. And me, I wasn't just a burden. I was a piggy bank he needed to smash open, right now. And my daughter, my God, Maya. She was living in a house with a cornered, desperate animal, a man who had already proven he would steal from his own family, a man who was capable of anything. Sir, Andre's voice brought me back. Mr. Williams, are you there? I'm here, Andre. My voice was a whisper. He's a danger to my daughter. He's a danger to everyone in that house, Andre said bluntly. He has no income, he's a thief, and he's in debt to the mob. This man has no moves left to make. He's not just desperate, sir, he's explosive. What do you want me to do? I thought for a long, hard second. I could have Andre send security. I could have the police pick him up for the pension theft. I could have him arrested in an hour. But what about Maya? She was still in there. She was weak, she was manipulated, but she was my daughter. If I had him arrested, she would hate me. She would see me as the villain. She wouldn't understand the danger she was in. No, Ryan had to expose himself. Maya had to see the monster for herself. Andre, I said, my voice hardening, I need you to do two things. First, I want you to lock down every single one of my assets. The pension fund, my personal checking, every TechSec stock certificate. Freeze them. Put a hold on them that not even I can bypass without calling you directly and using a verbal countersign. A full asset lockdown. Got it. What's the countersign? Serafina, I said. My wife's name. Done, Andre replied. What's the second thing? I want you to keep watching him, but from a distance. I'm about to do something. I'm about to offer him bait. I need to know exactly what he does when he thinks he's won. There was a pause. Sir, that's incredibly dangerous. This man is not stable. I know, I said, looking at my old worn hands. I know exactly what he is, but I have to be the one to pull this thread. I have to see how far he'll go. I have to see if there's anything left of my daughter. I understand. We'll be in the shadows, sir. He won't make a move without us knowing. Just be careful. I will, son. Thank you. I hung up the phone. I stood in the bathroom for a long time. The fear was gone. The sadness was gone. All that was left was a cold, hard resolve. Ryan needed $50,000 by Monday. He thought I was a broke old man. It was time to give him a miracle. I stayed in my room all afternoon. I let the information Andre gave me settle in. A gambler, a thief, a man being hunted by loan sharks. This was the man living under the same roof as my daughter. This was the man who called me a burden. I understood now. He didn't just need money. He was a drowning man looking for someone to pull underwater with him, and he had his hands on me. I had to act. I had to see for myself. I had to give him the bait and see just how fast and how deep he would swallow the hook. I waited until I heard Ryan's car leave the driveway around 4 p.m. He always went to the gym, or at least that's what he told Maya. I walked out of my room. Maya was in the kitchen staring blankly at the counter, her face pale and tracked with old tears. She looked broken. I shuffled my feet playing the part. Maya, honey. She jumped, startled. Oh, Dad, I didn't hear you. I put my hand on her arm. She flinched just slightly. Baby, I know things are hard right now, I said, my voice soft and hesitant. I know Ryan is stressed. I'm not deaf. I hear the arguments. She looked down ashamed. It's just work, Dad. He's just under a lot of pressure. I know, I said, patting her hand. That's why I feel a little foolish. I was going through some of your mother's old papers this morning, just remembering her, you know. Maya nodded, her eyes filling with fresh tears at the mention of Serafina. I miss her, she whispered. Me too, baby. Me too. I paused as if gathering my thoughts. Well, it turns out I found something. An old life insurance policy, one I'd completely forgotten about. It's not much, but... She looked up, a flicker of something in her eyes. What is it, Dad? I took a deep breath like I was embarrassed to even say the number. It's $75,000, Maya. Maya's hands flew to her mouth. A small gasp escaped. Dad? Are you serious? 75,000? It seems so, I said, feigning confusion. The check cleared this morning. I was going to put it in savings, but then I heard Ryan this morning, and I thought, this is what your mother would want. I want you to have it. I want to help. She didn't just cry. She collapsed. She fell into my arms, sobbing with a force that shook her whole body. It wasn't just sadness, it was relief. It was the desperate, gut-wrenching relief of someone who had been holding their breath for months. Oh my God, Dad, thank you, she cried into my shoulder. You don't know what this means. This changes everything. This will save us. This will save Ryan. Thank you, thank you. I held her, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I was saving her, but not in the way she thought. I was saving her from him, and to do it, I had to let her believe this lie just a little longer. It's okay, baby, I whispered. It's just money. Family takes care of family. She pulled back, her face shining with tears and a desperate, manic joy. I have to call him. I have to tell Ryan. He's been so worried. This is the answer. Of course, honey, I said, forcing a warm smile. You tell him. I went back to my room and closed the door. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for the animal to walk into it. I didn't have to wait long. At 7 p.m., the front door opened, but this time there was no slam, no angry grunt. I heard laughter. I heard Ryan's deep, booming voice full of energy and charm. Maya, my love, where is he? Where is our hero? I opened my door. Ryan was standing in the living room, his arms full. He had a massive bouquet of a dozen red roses for Maya, who was beaming. And in his other hand, I almost laughed out loud. In his other hand was a bottle of whiskey. But not just any whiskey. It was a dark, dusty bottle of Pappy Van Winkle's 23 year. A bottle that cost minimum $5,000. A bottle a man drowning in debt would never buy unless he was celebrating an escape. Dad Saul, he boomed, walking over to me. He didn't just pat my shoulder. He wrapped his arm around me, pulling me into a suffocating false embrace. You, sir, are a lifesaver, a guardian angel. He thrust the bottle into my hands. This is for you, the best for the best. We are celebrating tonight. I looked at the bottle. Ryan, this is too much. I can't accept this. Nonsense, he laughed. It's nothing, just a small token of my appreciation. You saved us, Saul. You really did. I saw Maya watching us, her eyes shining with love for her cured husband. She thought she had him back. She had no idea he was just a different kind of monster now. We sat in the living room. Ryan poured me a glass of the $5,000 whiskey. I don't drink. He should have known that. He didn't. He was too excited. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with a manic, predatory energy. Saul, he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. That's $75,000. It's perfect. It's fate. I have a deal, a massive deal, that I've been trying to get the capital for. It's a sure thing, guaranteed. I just nodded, playing the part. Oh, a deal. Yes, he said, talking fast. A tech investment. It's going to double, maybe triple in a week. This $75K, it's not just saving us, it's going to make us rich, Soul. All of us. I'll have that money back to you plus interest before you can even blink. There it was. He wasn't just going to take the money to pay his debts. He was going to gamble it. He was going to throw my life-saving gift into the same fire that had already burned him alive. That sounds wonderful, son, I said, raising my glass of water. It is, he said, beaming. We just need to go to your bank first thing Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. We'll transfer the funds, and by Friday we'll all be on a beach laughing. He really believed it. He believed I was a fool. He believed he had won. "Monday at 9 it is," I said, smiling right back at him. "But Ryan, I have one condition." His smile faltered just for a millisecond. "A condition anything, soul. Name it." "This is a celebration," I said. "This is a new start for our family. I want to do it right. Sunday night. Tomorrow. Let me take you and Maya out for a real celebration dinner. My treat." Ryan relaxed, laughing again. "Of course, soul. Where do you want to go, that little Italian place you like?" I shook my head. "No. I was thinking Livray." Ryan's jaw dropped. Livray was the most expensive, most exclusive French restaurant in Atlanta, a place where a meal for three would cost more than my monthly pension check. He stared at me, his mind clearly racing. "Dad," Maya said, confused. "Livray. But that place is—" "I have $75,000, honey," I said, giving her a gentle grandfatherly wink. "I think I can splurge a little, don't you? Besides," I added, looking right at Ryan, "I want to make an announcement about Josiah's other assets. It's a night for good news." Ryan's eyes. I will never forget his eyes. They weren't just gleaming, they were glowing, like a jackpot slot machine. He thought he hadn't just hit the lottery. He thought he had just bought the whole casino. "Sunday night it is," he said, raising his glass. "To family." Ryan leaned in so close I could smell the expensive $5,000 whiskey on his breath. His voice was a low, urgent rasp. The charm was gone, replaced by the raw, desperate need of the gambler Andre had described. "So Dad's soul," he said, trying to sound casual, "about Monday morning, that $75,000, we need to be precise. My partners on this deal, they are very particular about timing." I just looked at him, my face a mask of grandfatherly confusion. "Timing, son? What do you mean?" He forced a tight smile. "I mean, we need to be at your bank when the doors open. 9 a.m. sharp. Can we do that? We walk in. You sign the transfer and we are out in 10 minutes. My deal closes at noon." He was pushing, hard. He needed to secure that money. He needed to know it was real, that he could get his hands on it before he could even breathe. I smiled back, a slow, gentle smile. I made him wait. I took a small sip of my water. I set the glass down deliberately. "Of course, son," I said, my voice soft. 9 a.m. sharp. We will be there. But— the word hung in the air. I saw his jaw clench. His eyes narrowed. "But— what but, Dad? I told you this deal won't wait." "Oh, it's not a big but," I said, chuckling as if he were being silly. "It's just one small condition. A favor for an old man." He visibly relaxed, but only slightly. "A favor, anything, soul. You name it." "Tomorrow is Sunday," I said. "It's the day before we start this new chapter. This money, it's a blessing from Serafina. And now this news about Josiah's assets. It feels like our family is finally getting a fresh start. I want to celebrate. I want to mark the occasion properly." Maya, who had been silent, looked up. "Oh, Dad, that's sweet. We could make a nice roast here." Ryan looked relieved. "Great idea, honey. We'll have a big family dinner right here." I held up my hand gently. "No, not here. I am tired of this guest room, Ryan. I'm tired of this house. For one night I want to feel— well, I want to feel what you're used to." I looked him right in the eye. "I want you to let me, your broke old dad, take you both out to a real dinner. My treat." Ryan's smile was patronizing. "Dad, that's great, but we can just go to that little Italian place you like. We don't need—" "No," I interrupted, but my voice was still kind. "I have $75,000 now, son. I think I can splurge a little. I've already made the reservation. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at Livray." The name hit the room like a physical shock. Maya gasped. "Dad, Livray, but that place is a suit and tie. It's—" Ryan just stared at me. His eyes, which moments before were gleaming with predatory excitement, were now wide with total disbelief. He was calculating. How much did a dinner at Livray cost? 1,000? 2,000? Was this senile old fool about to waste the money? His money? "Dad. Soul," Ryan said, his voice strained. "Are you sure that place it's incredibly expensive? Maybe we should be more responsible with this windfall. Save it for the investment." He was trying to protect his stake. "Nonsense. I said, waving my hand dismissively. What's $2,000 between family when we're about to be rich? We have to celebrate. I leaned in as if sharing a secret just with him. Besides Ryan, there's another reason. This isn't just about the $75,000. His focus sharpened. He became utterly still. What do you mean, Sol? That lawyer's visit today, I said, lowering my voice. The $75,000 from Serafina's policy was just the beginning. The reason I was there, it was about my brother Josiah. I told you he passed. Yeah, Ryan said, his voice now a cautious whisper. You said you thought he was broke. I was wrong, I said, allowing a look of wonder to cross my face. I was so wrong. Ryan, my brother, he wasn't broke at all. He left me. Well, he left me other assets. Ryan's eyes. I will never forget his eyes in that moment. They didn't just light up. They didn't just gleam. They ignited. It was the look of a man dying of thirst in a desert who had just stumbled upon an oasis. It was the look of a gambler who, after losing everything, saw the dealer flip over a perfect royal flush. It was pure, unadulterated, triumphant greed. He thought he wasn't just getting $75,000. He thought he had just hit the main jackpot. He thought the broke old man he'd been tolerating was secretly the key to a real fortune. Other assets? He breathed, his voice trembling with the effort of staying calm. Like what, Saul? I smiled and patted his arm. Now, son, that's what tomorrow night is for. At Livray. It's a complicated matter. Lawyers, deeds, properties. It's too much to get into tonight. Let's just say Monday morning's transfer. It might just be the beginning for all of us. I had done it. I had replaced the small hook with a massive one. He was no longer just a fish. He was a whale, and he was swallowing the bait whole. He was silent for a beat, his mind clearly racing, recalculating everything. The nursing home plan, the impatience, the need to get me out, all of it was vanishing, being replaced by a new strategy: protect the asset. Suddenly, he threw his head back and laughed. A deep, genuine, joyous laugh. He grabbed my shoulders. Saul, you old fox, you've been holding out on us. This is amazing. He turned to Maya. Did you hear that, baby? Your dad is a man of mystery, properties, deeds. He turned back to me, his face a perfect mask of loving devotion. Tomorrow night, Livray. It's a date. It's the most important dinner of our lives. We will be there. We will celebrate you, Soul. We will celebrate family. I just smiled back at him, my heart as cold and heavy as a stone. Yes, son, I said. We will. We'll celebrate family. Ryan and Maya went to bed early that night. They were giddy drunk on the fantasy of their new imagined wealth. I heard them whispering and laughing through their bedroom wall, making plans for the money. My money. Josiah's money. It was disgusting. I waited until the house was completely silent. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. I went back into the bathroom, closed the door, and turned on the fan. The familiar whir filled the small space. I took out the flip phone. My hands were perfectly steady. I was no longer the sad, shuffling old man. I was a general preparing for the final battle. I dialed Andre's number. He picked up on the first ring, as I knew he would. Thompson, his voice was alert. Andre, it's Saul. The plan is in motion. He took the bait. I saw, sir, Andre replied. His team was already watching. Of course they were. He bought a $5,000 bottle of whiskey on a maxed-out credit card. The man is a fool. He's more than a fool, Andre. He's a cornered animal. And tomorrow night, I'm locking the cage. What do you need, Mr. Williams? I told him I was taking them to dinner, Livray, tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Livray, Andre said, a note of approval in his voice. An excellent choice for a public execution. I need you to make the reservation, Andre. Not me. I need the best private room they have. The one with the single entrance. Book it under your name. TechSec Holdings. I need the staff to be yours, or at least loyal to you. I want no interruptions. I know the owner, Andre said simply. Consider it done. The Roi Soleil room. It's soundproof. What else? I need you there, son. You are a crucial part of this. And I need you to bring Lawyer Jackson. I need him to have all the paperwork ready, the restraining order, the fraud complaint, the evidence from your team, everything. This will be the only meeting we ever have. Jackson will be there, Andre confirmed. He's already drafting the complaints. I took a breath. This was the most important part. One last thing, Andre. I need security. Not just one man. I need a team. Discreet but present. In the restaurant outside the room. There was a slight pause. Sir, do you really think that's necessary? I do, I said, my voice cold. You're the one who told me he's in debt to loan sharks. He's a man who would steal from his own family. He is desperate. When he finds out tomorrow night that there is no money, that the villa is gone, that the $75,000 was a lie, and that he is facing prison, he will not react well. He is a violent man, Andre. He's just been hiding it. I will not be in that room with him and my daughter unprotected. Andre's voice hardened. You are absolutely right, sir. My apologies. It will be handled. My personal detail. They'll be dressed as patrons at the next table. Ryan won't be able to stand up too quickly without finding someone in his way. The exits will be covered. He will not be able to touch you or Maya. I guarantee it. Good, I said. This is not a negotiation, Andre. It is a judgment, and I will be the judge. I understand, Mr. Williams. Tomorrow at 8. The Roy Soleil room. Jackson will have the papers. My men will have the exits. And I, he said, will have the pleasure of watching. I snapped the phone shut. I looked at myself in the mirror. The face of a 69-year-old retired teacher looked back at me. But the eyes were not tired anymore. They were cold. They were clear. Tomorrow night, Ryan Cunningham would finally learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. Sunday night, 8 p.m. I took a cab to Livray. I had told Maya and Ryan I would meet them there. I walked in alone. The maitre d', a tall man with a severe face, looked down his nose at my suit. It was the only suit I owned, a simple dark wool suit I'd had for 20 years, the one I wore to church, to weddings, and to Serafina's funeral. It was clean, it was pressed, but in a place like this it screamed poverty. May I help you, sir? He asked. His voice was polite, but his eyes were not. I am here for the reservation for Thompson. The Roi Soleil room, I said. His entire posture changed. The disdain vanished, replaced by a sudden anxious respect. Ah, Monsieur Williams, of course. Mr. Thompson has informed us you are the host tonight. A pleasure. Please write this way. Your party has already arrived. He led me down a private velvet-roped hallway. He opened a set of heavy dark oak doors. The Roy Soleil room, sir. I walked in. The room was opulent, all dark woods and gold leaf with a single massive crystal chandelier. At the center of the table, Ryan and Maya were already seated. They looked new. Maya was wearing a glittering silver sequin dress that I had never seen before. It was cut low, something Serafina never would have let her wear. She looked beautiful, but she also looked nervous, like she was afraid she'd break one of the glasses. Ryan was wearing a brand new suit, a European cut, all sharp lines and shiny fabric. On his wrist, he wore a massive gleaming gold watch. It was a new purchase. I knew it. He had bought it the second he thought my money was his. They looked like children playing dress-up in their parents' clothes. Dad, Maya jumped up, rushing to hug me. You're here. This place it's like a palace. It's nice, honey, I said, hugging her back. She felt thin in my arms. Ryan stood, beaming. He didn't hug me. He shook my hand, a firm, performative, man-of-the-house grip. Sol, you made it. What do you think? Top of the line, just like you deserve. He pulled out my chair for me. The performance of the loving son-in-law was in full swing. A waiter who I recognized from the photo Andre had sent me as one of his security team entered the room. Good evening, Mr. Williams. May I get you something to drink, or perhaps the sommelier? Before I could speak, Ryan waved his hand. Bring the sommelier, and bring the caviar service to start. The best you have. The waiter nodded. Very good, sir, and left. You have to do it right, Saul, Ryan said, winking at me. Can't celebrate a fortune by pinching pennies. The sommelier, a tall, thin Frenchman, entered with the wine list, a book that looked as heavy as a Bible. He presented it to me. I just smiled and pushed it gently across the table to Ryan. You handle this, son. You know more about this fancy stuff than I do. Ryan's ego visibly swelled. This was his stage. He fumbled with the pages, his eyes scanning the prices. I could see him trying to find the most expensive one. He couldn't pronounce the French, but he could read the numbers. "We'll take this one," he said, stabbing his finger at a line on the page. The Chateau Petrus, the 2005s. The sommelier raised an eyebrow, genuinely impressed. "An excellent choice, monsieur, the $1,000 bottle." I just smiled. Whatever my son wants. When the wine arrived, Ryan tasted it like he'd seen actors do in movies, swishing it around, sniffing it loudly. "Bold," he declared. "Complex, excellent." I just drank my water. The dinner was a blur of tiny portions on massive plates. Ryan talked the entire time. He was manic. He was on fire with the fantasy of his new life. "You won't even recognize us in 6 months, Saul," he said halfway through his third glass of the $1,000 wine. "I'm not just talking about paying off some bills. I'm talking about a whole new life. I'm closing this deal on Monday thanks to you. That $75K is just the seed money. It's going to unlock millions." "Millions?" I asked, playing my part. "That sounds like a lot." "It is," he boomed, gesturing with his fork. "We're done with that little rental house. I'm talking a new house, Saul. A real house. In Buckhead. Something with a gate. And a new car for Maya. A Mercedes. And a new one for me. A Porsche. No more pinching pennies. No more worrying about old men getting sick." Maya looked down at her plate. Even she seemed uncomfortable with that last comment. Ryan, completely oblivious, plunged forward. He reached across the table and patted my hand, his eyes shining with a frightening false sincerity. "And the first thing we're going to do, Dad Saul, the very first thing, is take care of you. We're going to find you a top-of-the-line luxury nursing home. The best one. The one I saw advertised in the golf magazine. It has its own golf course, a 24-hour nursing staff, gourmet meals. You deserve to rest, Saul. You've done enough. It's time for you to be taken care of properly." There it was, the generous version of the threat I'd heard through the window. He was going to take my money, all of it, and lock me away in a gilded cage, telling himself he was being a good son. I watched him. I saw the greed in his eyes. I saw the desperation. This wasn't just celebration. This was mania. This was the high of a gambler who believed against all logic that the next roll would finally be the one. He raised his glass high, the deep red wine swirling. Maya, caught up in his energy, raised her glass too. "A toast," Ryan announced to the room. "To new beginnings, to the future, and to the man who made it all possible, the man who saved us. To Dad Soul." Maya dutifully repeated, "To Dad Soul." They both looked at me, their glasses raised, waiting for me to drink. I didn't move. I just smiled. That same gentle, confused old man smile. I let the toast hang in the air, the silence stretching. Ryan's smile faltered just a little. "Dad." The toast. I slowly, deliberately stood up. My old chair scraped slightly on the priceless rug. The movement was unexpected. It broke his rhythm. "Thank you, son," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. "That's very thoughtful. And you're right. This is a night for new beginnings." I picked up my water glass, not the wine. I tapped it gently with my old plain gold wedding ring. Ting. The sound was small, but sharp. "Before we talk about that $75,000, I said, my voice suddenly clear, steady, and cold. The old man was gone. "And before we get to Josiah's other assets, I have a few other guests who are joining us. I asked them to wait until we were finished with appetizers. I hope that's all right." Ryan and Maya froze. Their glasses were still in the air. "Guests," Ryan said, his voice suddenly losing all its boom. "What guests, Saul? You didn't say anything about other guests." "Oh," I said, giving him a small, cold smile. "They aren't my guests, Ryan." Right on cue, the heavy oak doors to the Roi Soleil room swung open. Ryan's glass stopped halfway to his lips. Maya's hand was frozen on her own glass. "Guests," Ryan repeated, and his voice was no longer a boom. It was a tight, suspicious hiss. "What guests, Saul? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about them," I said, nodding toward the heavy oak doors. As if on cue, the doors swung open silently. 4 men walked in. They did not look like they belonged at Livray, and yet they commanded the room instantly. The first man was Andre Thompson. He was young, under 40, and wore an impeccably tailored black suit that probably cost more than Ryan's new car. He radiated an aura of absolute terrifying power. Beside him was a man in his late 60s with sharp eyes and a face that looked like it was carved from granite. He carried a heavy monogrammed leather briefcase. This was my lawyer, Jackson. Behind them stood two other men. They were large. They wore simple dark suits that didn't quite hide the bulk of their shoulders, or the professional watchful stillness in their eyes. They positioned themselves just inside the room, one on either side of the door. They didn't just enter the room. They sealed it. Maya let out a tiny, frightened squeak. Ryan's face was a mask of confusion and rising panic. He looked from Andre to the two large men and then to me. His mind was racing, trying to put the pieces together. He looked like a man who just realized the door he walked through was a trap. "What is this?" Ryan demanded, his voice cracking. "Saul, who are these people? Is this about Josiah? Is this about the inheritance?" He was still clinging to the fantasy. I didn't answer. I just looked at Andre. Andre Thompson stepped forward. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at Maya. His eyes were locked on Ryan Cunningham with the cold, impersonal focus of a surgeon. The room was silent. "Ryan Cunningham," Andre said. His voice was not loud, but it filled the opulent room, cutting through the air like a razor. Ryan, who was halfway out of his chair, froze. "How do you know my name?" "Who are you?" Andre smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator that has finally cornered its prey. "My name is Andre Thompson. I am the founder and chief executive officer of TechSec Holdings." I watched Ryan's face. The name didn't register. Why would it? To Ryan, Andre Thompson was just another name in the business pages, a world he only pretended to be a part of. "I don't know who you are," Ryan blustered, trying to regain his footing. "And I don't care. This is a private family dinner. You need to leave. Now." "We will," Andre said, his voice dangerously calm. "As soon as we've concluded our business, and our business is with you." Andre took another step forward. The two large men by the door shifted their hands clasped in front of them. "8 months ago, Ryan," Andre continued, "you were fired from your position at the equity fund North Star Capital." Every drop of blood drained from Ryan's face. He looked like he had been shot. He glanced wildly at Maya, who was just as stunned. "I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. "I'm still with North Star. I'm a senior partner. I'm closing a deal on Monday." Andre almost laughed. "You're closing nothing. You were terminated quietly for cause. The cause being the embezzlement of $100,000 from the firm's client reserve account." "That's a lie," Ryan shrieked, finally finding his voice. He pointed a trembling finger at Andre. "You can't come in here and say that I'll sue you. I'll sue you for slander." "You can certainly try," Andre said, unfazed. "But the data doesn't lie, which brings me to my next point." He held up his phone, the screen dark. "You see, Mr. Cunningham, after you were fired, you got scared. You knew the internal audit would eventually find the hole. So you tried to cover your tracks. You attempted to hack into your old firm's servers to alter the digital ledgers, a very clumsy, very foolish attempt." Ryan was shaking his head, backing away toward the wall. No, I didn't. You can't prove that." Andre's cold smile widened. "That's where you're wrong. You see North Star Capital, they are one of my company's biggest clients. The firewall you tried to breach, I designed it myself. The intrusion alert that flagged your IP address, it came directly to my team." Andre tapped his phone. "I don't just think you did it, Ryan. I have the data. I have the logs. I have your digital fingerprints all over the scene of the crime. You are not a partner. You are not a high flyer. You are a common second-rate thief. And you are a terrible hacker." Ryan's mouth snapped shut. He looked at Maya, then at me, then back to the men who had just entered the room. His face was a canvas of pure primal fear. "I don't," he stammered. "This is not, you can't." The older man, Jackson, stepped forward. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace like an undertaker. He was in his late 60s like me, but there was a sharpness to him, a precision that made him seem dangerous. He placed his heavy monogrammed briefcase on the white linen tablecloth. The thud was the only sound in the room. Ryan flinched as if the sound itself were an accusation. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said, his voice high and thin. "But I'm not. I'm suing all of you. This is harassment." Jackson looked at him, not with anger, but with something far worse. Pity. "My name is Jackson, Mr. Cunningham," he said. His voice was like dry ice, quiet and cold. I am Mr. Solomon Williams's personal counsel. Ryan's eyes shot to me. His what? His lawyer. The old man doesn't have a lawyer. He does, Jackson said. He undid the gold latches on his briefcase. Click, click. And he has this. He pulled out a single thick manila folder and slid it across the table. It stopped perfectly in front of Ryan's wine glass. Ryan stared at it as if it were a bomb. This is not a lawsuit, Mr. Cunningham. We don't need to sue you for what you've already done. Jackson tapped the folder. This is a warrant for your arrest to be executed by the officers who are generously waiting by the door. Maya let out a sound, a small strangled gasp like someone being pushed underwater. She looked at the two large men by the door. They weren't security. Their suits were simple, functional. They were police. They had unbuttoned their jackets. Arrest? Ryan's voice was a squeak. Arrest for what? This is insane. This is harassment. Jackson, without even looking down, read from the paper in his hand. His voice was a flat monotone, like a man reading a grocery list. For the charges of aggravated identity theft, for forgery in the third degree in connection with banking credentials, and for grand larceny, specifically the systematic and fraudulent transfer of $15,000 from the private retirement account of Mr. Solomon Williams. The words $15,000 hung in the air. Maya looked at Ryan, her face a mask of utter, uncomprehending horror. Ryan, what is he talking about? What, $15,000? Ryan ignored her. He didn't see her. He only saw me. His face was no longer pale. It was a deep mottled red. The mask of the charming son-in-law, the successful partner, all of it had burned away. The animal was finally fully exposed. You! He screamed, his voice cracking. He pointed a trembling finger at me. You did this! You set me up! He was desperate, looking for any foothold. The $75,000, the inheritance. It was all a lie, wasn't it? You don't have that money. You're just a broke, senile old man. You lied to me. I let the accusation hang in the room. I let it echo off the expensive wallpaper. I watched my daughter look at me, her eyes begging for an answer. Then I took a slow sip of my water. I set the glass down. When I spoke, my voice had changed. The gravel was gone. The hesitation was gone. The old man shuffle was gone. The voice that came out was the voice I used in the boardroom. It was clear, it was cold, and it carried the weight of absolute authority. You are absolutely right, Ryan. I did lie. He froze. He was expecting a denial. He was expecting a weak, stammering defense. He got a confession. I do not have $75,000. A wild, triumphant look flashed in his eyes. He thought he'd found a way out. He turned to the officers. You hear that? He admits it. He's crazy. He's senile. He's the one committing fraud. He made it all up. I let him finish his frantic screaming. I waited for the room to fall silent again. Then I delivered the final word. I do not have $75,000, Ryan, I said. I have $75 million. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so total I could hear the faint hiss of the gas flame in the restaurant's main fireplace 20 yards down the hall. Maya stopped breathing. Jackson calmly looked at his briefcase. Andre, standing by the wall, allowed himself the smallest, most satisfied smile I had ever seen. Ryan's face just collapsed. The word didn't compute. What did you say? I repeated myself, enunciating every syllable. I said I am worth approximately $75 million. Though Andre, correct me if I'm wrong, the TechSec stock split last quarter, so it might be closer to 80. Andre nodded from the wall. 82.4, sir, as of market close today. Ryan looked at Andre, then at me, then back at Andre. TechSec. What does TechSec have to do with you? Andre didn't tell you the whole story, I said. He told you he was my student. He didn't tell you what I taught him. 20 years ago, I was his first investor. I gave him $50,000. In return, I received 20% of a small, unknown company called TechSec Holdings. I stood up from my chair and walked around the table, stopping directly in front of Ryan. He was leaning against the wall as if his legs could no longer support him. I am Solomon Williams. I am the founding investor and a silent member of the board of directors of the company Andre runs, the same company that just provided the digital evidence of your embezzlement to the district attorney. Maya finally found her voice. It was a tiny, lost whisper. Dad, Why did you hide it? We lived in that house. I watched you count pennies. I don't understand. I turned to my daughter, and for the first time I let her see the pain I had been carrying. Because your mother and we were afraid. Afraid of what? She whispered. Afraid of this, I said, gesturing to the opulent room, to the $1,000 bottle of wine, to Ryan, to the whole god-awful wreckage of the night. We were afraid of what this kind of money does. We watched it destroy my brother Josiah. We watched it turn good people into greedy hollow shells. We wanted you to be different, Maya. We wanted you to be strong, to be independent, to value hard work, to build a life based on who you were, not what you had. I looked at her, my heart breaking for what I had to say next. But we were wrong. We failed you. We were so busy protecting you from the poison of wealth that we left you vulnerable to the disease of desperation. Our secrecy didn't make you strong. It made you weak. It made you blind. It made you so hungry for the life you thought you deserved that you couldn't see the predator sitting right next to you. It made you stand by silent while this monster, this gambler, this thief, offered to sell your father to a nursing home to save his own skin. I turned back to Ryan. The two officers were moving toward him now. You called me a burden, Ryan. You called me a pathetic old man. You thought you were smarter than me. You thought you were stealing $15,000 from a fool. I leaned in, my voice low. You weren't stealing from a retired teacher. You were stealing from your own company's largest shareholder. You weren't just a bad son-in-law. You were a terrible businessman. And that Ryan is the one thing men like Andre and I can never, ever forgive. He looked at me, his eyes completely dead. He finally understood. He hadn't just lost. He was never even in the game. The officers stepped forward. One of them took Ryan's arm. And for the first time, Ryan didn't resist. He just slumped a puppet with all his strings cut and let them put his hands behind his back. The sound of the first handcuff clicking shut was the most final sound I had ever heard. It was a metal door slamming shut on 40 years of my life. Ryan, finally realizing that this was not a negotiation, that this was the end, turned into a wild animal. He twisted in the officer's grip. "Get your hands off me," he yelled. "This is entrapment. He's a senile old fool. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's crazy." The officers were professionals. They didn't flinch. They simply applied pressure. Ryan's head whipped around his eyes, wild and terrified, searching the room for a lifeline. They landed on Maya. She was still frozen against the far wall, her hands pressed to her mouth, her face a white mask of pure, uncomprehending horror. "Maya!" Ryan shrieked. His voice was no longer a boom. It was a high, thin, desperate sound. "Tell them! Don't just stand there, you idiot! Tell them!" Maya just shook her head, a tiny spastic movement. "Ryan, tell them!" he roared, lunging against the officer's hold. "You're a part of this. You're my wife. You told me he was weak. You told me he was an easy target. It was you. You gave me his bank information. You gave me the password, Serafina's birthday. You're just as guilty as I am. Tell them, Maya. Tell them." His words hung in the silent room. He was right. She had been weak. She had been complicit. She had been the one to give him the keys to my life. And now the man she had given them to was trying to drag her into the prison cell with him. Everyone in the room, me, Andre Jackson, the officers, we all turned. We all looked at Maya. This was her moment. The moment to choose her side. She stared at her husband, the man she had sacrificed her father for. Her face, which had been pale with shock, suddenly crumpled. The tears that had been frozen in her eyes finally broke free and streamed down her cheeks. She shook her head, her voice a dead, hollow whisper. "I don't know what you're talking about, Ryan." She looked away from him toward the wall. "I didn't know. I didn't know about any of it. I thought you were a good man." Ryan stopped struggling. He just stared at her. The final betrayal. He had built his entire crooked world on her weakness, and in the end, that same weakness was his damnation. He let out a sound. It was not a word. It was a hollow, empty laugh of pure despair. "You," he choked out. "You." The officers took that as their cue. They began to pull the now limp Ryan toward the door. He was done. "Officers, just one moment," Jackson said. His voice was calm, almost bored, as if he were asking to see the dessert menu. Ryan, confused, stopped. He probably thought for one insane second that there was hope. I watched Jackson walk back to his heavy briefcase. He didn't take out the arrest warrant. He pulled out a second, even thicker folder. This one was bright red. He didn't hand it to Ryan. He held it up so Ryan could see the cover sheet. "Mr. Cunningham," Jackson said, "this isn't from us. This is, well, it's from them." Ryan stared at the folder, uncomprehending. "Your friends from the East Coast," Jackson clarified. "The ones you owe $250,000 to." If Ryan had been pale before he was translucent now, his skin looked like old paper. How did you... They were, let's say, clients of a security firm that Mr. Thompson has an interest in, Jackson said smoothly. It seems they were very interested to learn that your big investment deal to pay them back was actually a desperate attempt to defraud Mr. Williams. They were also very interested to know that you are currently being arrested for multiple felonies. Jackson tapped the red folder. "This is a civil suit for the full amount plus damages. They've also provided sworn testimony about your gambling activities to the district attorney. It seems they do not appreciate being lied to. They will be waiting for you when or if you ever get out." That was the first killing blow. The realization that even if he somehow beat my charges, the loan sharks were waiting. He was finished. "Oh," Jackson said, as if he had just remembered something. He pulled out a final single blue sheet of paper from his own pocket. "And this arrived by courier just an hour ago. It's from your mortgage bank." Maya, who had been a statue of silent tears, looked up, her eyes wide with a new, fresh terror. Jackson read from the paper. "It's a notice of foreclosure, effective immediately. It seems that when you are 3 months delinquent on your payments and the bank discovers you acquired the home loan under fraudulent pretenses, namely by claiming employment at a firm that had already fired you for embezzlement, they tend to accelerate the process. The locks will be changed tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. This blow wasn't for Ryan, it was for Maya. The house was gone. The life was gone. Everything she had betrayed me for, it was all smoke. It was all gone. Jackson calmly put the papers back in his briefcase. He snapped the latches shut. Click, click. "Officers," he said, "he's all yours." This time the officers didn't wait. They grabbed Ryan's arms and pulled him hard toward the door. The animal survival instinct kicked back in. He began to fight, to twist, but it was pathetic. "No!" he shrieked. "You can't. This is my life, Maya. Maya, you lying witch, you set me up, I'll kill you, do you hear me? I'll kill all of you." His screams were muffled as they dragged him out of the private room, out of the velvet-roped hallway, and into the main dining room of Livray. The entire restaurant went silent. 100 of Atlanta's wealthiest patrons, bankers, lawyers, politicians dropped their forks. They watched as this man in his shiny new suit wearing his new gold watch was dragged screaming and cursing past their tables by 2 police detectives. I heard his voice one last time. "You don't know who he is. He's a liar. He's the devil." Then the heavy front doors of the restaurant closed behind him, finally swallowing him up. Back in the private room, the silence was total. It was just me, Andre Jackson, and Maya. My daughter stood alone, trembling in her glittering silver dress. She looked at me, she looked at Andre, she looked at the half-eaten $1,000 dinner on the table. She saw the ruins of the life she had chosen. She saw the abyss that had just opened up beneath her. Her eyes rolled back in her head, her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the priceless carpet in a heap of sequins and despair. I didn't move to catch her. I just stood there holding my glass of water, watching my whole world burn to the ground. The flashes from the cell phones of the other diners recording the scene through the open doorway were blinding. The show was over. The judgment was complete, and I just stood there, finally terribly at peace. I don't remember leaving the restaurant. The sounds from that room are a blur. Ryan screaming, the flash of cell phone cameras, the sound of Maya hitting the floor. Jackson and Andre handled the fallout. I do remember the flashing blue and red lights of the police car as it pulled away, swallowing Ryan into the dark. I remember the sea of faces in the main dining room, the whispers the phones held high, all recording my daughter's complete and total collapse. Andre's security men were professionals. They formed a tight circle around us, a human wall shielding us from the gawkers. They guided me, and they guided the weeping, catatonic Maya through the lobby. I had to hold her arm to keep her upright. She was a rag doll in a $500 sequin dress. She hadn't said a single word since she whispered, "I don't know," to Ryan. Her eyes were blank, staring at nothing. I didn't take her back to the house that was being foreclosed. That life was over. Instead, I had Andre's driver, a silent man in a dark suit, take us to Midtown Atlanta. We pulled up to a glass skyscraper that pierced the night sky. We went up a private elevator, just me and Maya. The silence was heavy, broken only by her quiet, hiccuping sobs. I used a key I had only received myself 2 days prior. The door opened not into a small guest room, but into a massive empty space. It was a penthouse. The windows were 2 stories tall, looking out over the entire Atlanta skyline, a river of glittering indifferent lights. The floors were dark polished marble. The kitchen was all chrome and stone, but there was no furniture, not a chair, not a table, just a vast, echoing, expensive emptiness. Maya stumbled into the center of the living room and just stood there. She looked lost, a small glittering object in a giant empty box. "Where are we?" she whispered. Her voice was raw from her hysterics at the restaurant. "We're home," I said. "Or at least it's a home." I walked to the window, my reflection staring back at me. A 69-year-old man in a 20-year-old suit. "This is one of the apartments, the one your Uncle Josiah left me." Maya looked around, her mind clearly unable to process this new, sterile reality. "Josiah? But... Dad, I thought Uncle Josiah was... broke," I finished for her. "A failure, an addict living on the streets." That's what I thought too. That's what I let myself believe for 20 years after our last fight. I turned to face her. "It seems, Maya, that your mother and I weren't the only ones in this family who were good at keeping secrets." "Dad, I don't understand," she whispered. She was rubbing her arms, the sequins on her dress scratching her skin. "You have all this. You said millions. You own part of TechSec. And now this. Why did you let this happen? Why did you let Ryan? Why did you let me?" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Because I needed you to see the truth." "Maya," I said. My voice was harder than I intended. "And you were incapable of seeing it. You were blind." "He fooled us both," she cried. "He lied to me. He said it was an investment." I shook my head. The time for soft comforts for lies was over. "No, Maya. He didn't fool us. He fooled you. I knew exactly who he was the moment I heard him call me a burden through that window. The only question I had was how deep the rot went." I walked to my old briefcase, the one Jackson had retrieved for me from the restaurant. I pulled out the real inheritance documents, not the fake $75,000 story I had used as bait. "You think this is about my money from TechSec?" I said. "You think Josiah was just another rich man who left me some property? You still don't understand, do you?" I tossed the file onto the marble floor. It landed with a heavy final slap. The sound echoed in the empty room. "Josiah didn't just leave me a fortune, Maya. He left me a weapon, and he pointed it right at your husband." Maya stared at the folder on the floor, afraid to touch it. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "A weapon I don't understand." "I thought my brother was an addict who wasted his life," I said. I walked over to the window again, looking out at the city he apparently knew so well. "We had a terrible fight, Maya, 20 years ago." I told him his lifestyle, the drinking, the gambling, the fast money. I told him it would destroy him. He told me I was a fool, a coward hiding in a classroom, afraid to actually live. He walked out of my life, and that was the last time I saw him. I paused. The memory still hurt. For 2 decades, I carried that guilt. I told myself he had died, broke and alone in some ditch. I told myself Serafina and I were right to hide our own wealth, to live simply to protect you from the curse that I thought had killed my brother. I turned back to her, my voice sharp. "That's why I let you believe I was just a poor old teacher. It was my penance for failing Josiah." "But he left you all this," Maya said, her voice trembling. She gestured to the empty penthouse. "He wasn't poor at all. He got clean. He succeeded." "Oh, he did more than succeed, Maya." I bent down and picked up the folder. I pulled out the first document. It wasn't a bank statement. It was a private investigator's license. "Josiah Elias Williams, financial crimes investigator." Maya's eyes went wide. "What? My brother didn't just get clean. He went to war. He took all that rage, all that knowledge of the dark, gambling-addicted underbelly of the world, and he turned it into a profession. He became what they call a forensic accountant. which is just a polite $5 term for a scam hunter. He worked for law firms, for corporations, for rich families who wanted to find out where their money was really going. I pulled out another paper. It was a detailed report. I didn't understand why Josiah left me this inheritance, I said. The timing, it seemed like a coincidence, until I read his personal letter. It wasn't just a will, Maya, it was his last case file. A case file? Yes. It seems about a year ago, Josiah was hired by North Star Capital, the firm that fired Ryan, to quietly investigate a potential internal fraud. They suspected one of their junior partners was skimming from client accounts. I watched Maya's face as the final horrifying realization dawned. Josiah, I said, was the one who got Ryan fired. He was the one who uncovered the $100,000 embezzlement, but he didn't stop there. He saw the name, Williams. He knew Ryan was married to my daughter, so he kept digging, on his own time. He found the offshore betting accounts. He found the $25,000 credit card debt under your name, Maya, the one you thought was consolidated. He found the loan sharks, the ones Ryan owes $250,000 to. Maya was shaking her head, backing away. No, he couldn't know that. He knew everything. I said, my voice flat, pitiless. He knew Ryan was a black hole. He knew Ryan was systematically targeting my pension. He knew Ryan was using you as a shield. Josiah realized his own nephew-in-law was exactly the kind of monster he spent his life hunting. I looked down at the will at my brother's signature. He was sick, Maya. The cancer was fast. He knew he was dying. He knew he didn't have time to finish the job himself. He knew Ryan was about to bring this entire family to ruin. So what did he do? I said, the final terrible piece of the puzzle falling into place. He couldn't just call me. He knew I wouldn't believe him. He knew I was blind. He knew I would choose to believe you over him. So he did the only thing he could. He died, and he left me all of this. I threw the papers onto the marble floor. The deed to the Hilton Head Villa, the titles for the 2 Atlanta apartments. This isn't an inheritance, Maya. It was a rescue package. It was an arsenal. Josiah didn't leave me this money to make me rich. I was already rich. He left me this money to give me the power, the motive, and the legal standing to destroy your husband before he could destroy us. Maya sank to the floor, her hands covering her face, her sobs echoing in the vast empty room. He knew, she cried. All this time, he knew, and he tried to warn us. I looked down at her, the last shred of my softness gone. He tried to warn me, I corrected her. He knew you were already lost. Maya stayed on the floor, huddled in her ridiculous glittering dress, sobbing. She looked like a child, my child, but she was a 38-year-old woman who had made her choices. That's not true, she finally choked out, her voice thick with tears and shame. I'm not like him. You're not, I asked. My voice was quiet. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. Then tell me, Maya, when Ryan was screaming for $50,000, when he was calling me a burden, when he was planning to throw me in a home. What did you say? She was silent. What did you say, Maya? I pressed. I told him I would ask you for money, she whispered, her face still in her hands. And when I offered you the $75,000, what did you do? I thanked you, she cried. I was so relieved. You didn't ask where it came from. You didn't ask if I was okay. You just felt relief. You were relieved because you thought the man you married was finally going to get his payday. No, she screamed, looking up at me, her face a mess of running mascara and tears. I didn't know he was stealing from you. I didn't know about the embezzlement. I swear, Dad, I didn't know he was a criminal. But you knew he was in trouble, I stated. It wasn't a question. She nodded, her body shaking. Yes. He told me he had some debts. He told me he made some bad investments. He said he just needed a little capital to get it all back. He said it was a sure thing. And you believed him. I wanted to believe him, she whispered. I wanted to believe everything would be okay. I walked over to her, but I didn't offer her a hand. I didn't bend down to comfort her. I stood over her, a cold, tall shadow in the empty room. And the $30,000, Maya? Did you want to believe that too? Her head snapped up. Her crying stopped instantly. She stared at me, her eyes wide with a new, different kind of terror. What 30,000? Your life savings, Maya. The money Serafina left for you. The money I put in a trust fund for you that you inherited on your 30th birthday. The money you took out of your account, all of it in one lump sum 3 weeks ago. I knew this because Josiah's file. It was all in there. Every transaction. She looked away. She couldn't meet my eyes. She had been betrayed by Ryan, but she had betrayed me, and she had betrayed her mother's memory. He said it was the investment, she murmured, her voice dead. He said he needed it to secure the big deal. He said he would pay me back double. He said it was for us, for our future. There is no us, Maya, I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. There is no big deal. There was just a gambling debt. You didn't invest $30,000. You gave your entire life savings to a con man to pay off his loan sharks. And when that wasn't enough, you were fully prepared to let him take my $75,000 too. She had no answer. There was no answer. You've lost everything, Dad. She finally whispered, her eyes blank. She looked around the giant, empty penthouse. You have all this, but you've lost your family. You've lost me. I almost laughed. It was the last pathetic attempt of a manipulator to make me the one who had lost. I shook my head. You've got it all wrong, Maya. I haven't lost anything tonight. I just cleared out a bad debt. I turned my back on her. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city lights. You, I said, are the one who has lost everything. You lost your husband. You lost your house. You lost your savings. And you lost the last shred of respect I had for you. I left her there on the floor, a glittering pile of sequins and bad decisions, and went to find the guest room in my new empty home. The trial was a blur, a necessary ugly formality. Jackson and Andre, my lawyer and my protege, had prepared a case that was not just strong, it was an iron cage. Ryan, realizing he was trapped, tried to fight. He must have drained the last of his parents' money for a defense lawyer who tried desperately to paint me as the villain. I sat in the front row of the courtroom every day. Maya sat 3 rows behind me. We never spoke. We never even made eye contact. The prosecution called Andre to the stand first. He walked up not as my former student, but as the CEO of TechSec Holdings. He was calm, clinical, and precise. He presented the server logs, the IP addresses, the encrypted data trail of Ryan's clumsy attempt to hack his old firm. He explained to the jury in simple terms exactly how Ryan had tried to cover his $100,000 embezzlement. It was cold, it was factual, it was undeniable. Then Jackson's team presented the bank statements, my bank statements. The $15,000 siphoned $300 at a time from my pension. They showed the jury the security footage from the bank, time-stamped from 3 months ago. They saw Ryan smiling, his arm around my shoulder, helping me set up the mobile banking app on my phone. The jury saw him for exactly what he was, a predator grooming his prey. But the real blow came from Josiah's file. My brother, the financial investigator, had built a case from beyond the grave. Jackson presented the evidence of Ryan's wider fraud. He wasn't just a gambler. He was running a small, pathetic Ponzi scheme. He had conned 3 other families, telling them the same story he told me. A sure-thing tech investment. I saw them in the courtroom. An elderly couple who had lost their entire retirement. A young woman not much older than Maya who had invested her inheritance. They had lost everything. Ryan hadn't just targeted me. He had targeted anyone he thought was weak. When Ryan's lawyer put me on the stand, he tried to trap me. Mr. Williams, isn't it true you are worth over $80 million? Isn't it true you tricked your son-in-law by pretending to be poor? I looked at the lawyer. I looked at the jury. I looked at Ryan. I did not pretend to be poor. I said, my voice clear and strong. I am a retired teacher. I live a simple, modest life. My wealth is irrelevant. The fact is, he stole from me. He stole from a man he believed was a broke old burden. The motive here is not my wealth, it is his greed. They called Maya to the stand. She was a wreck. She was trembling. She looked at me just once, her eyes pleading for something I no longer had to give. I gave her nothing. Mrs. Cunningham, the prosecutor asked, did you give your husband your father's banking password? She hesitated. Her voice was a broken whisper. Yes. Did you know he was using it to transfer money from your father's account? I didn't want to know, she cried. He just said he would handle it. And did you give him your $30,000 in savings? Yes. Even after you knew he had been fired for embezzlement. Maya finally broke. She looked at Ryan with pure hatred. He told me he could fix it. He told me it was all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to help him. She wasn't a monster. She was a fool, and in the eyes of the law that was enough. She had been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. She had saved herself. But she had just buried her husband. The jury deliberation was short, 4 hours. The foreman stood. On the count of grand larceny against Solomon Williams, guilty. On the count of identity theft, guilty. On the counts of wire fraud against other investors, guilty. On the count of embezzlement, guilty. The judge was a woman with cold, intelligent eyes. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Cunningham, you are the definition of a parasite. You attached yourself to a good family and drained them dry. You preyed on the elderly. You preyed on your own wife. You are a man without honor and without remorse. This court sentences you to 15 years in state prison. I watched the officers pull him to his feet. He didn't scream this time. He was just empty. I felt nothing. No joy, no victory, just the cold, clean feeling of a fever finally breaking. A week later, I was not in a courtroom. I was in a boardroom. The top floor of the TechSec Tower. Andre's personal office. The view looked down on all of Atlanta. Andre stood by the window, hands in the pockets of his sharp suit. He's gone, Saul. 15 years. It's done. No, I said, sitting at the massive glass conference table. It's not done. Not yet. Andre turned. What's left? He has nothing. Maya has nothing. The foreclosure on their house is complete. There's still the inheritance, I said. Josiah's gift. Jackson, my lawyer, was sitting with me. He slid a thick stack of papers toward me. I want you to sell it all, I said. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Sold all of it. The villa in Hilton Head is a prime piece of real estate, and the 2 Atlanta apartments. Sell the villa, I repeated. Sell the house that Ryan and Maya lived in. The bank foreclosed. I want you to buy it at the auction and sell it immediately. I want every trace of that life liquidated. I want it all turned into cash. Andre spoke. Sir, that's millions of dollars. What are you going to do with it? Give it to Maya. I looked at him. Give it to Maya, Andre, if I gave Maya that money. Now she would be dead or broke in 6 months. She would find another Ryan. She hasn't learned the lesson yet. No, she will not be rewarded for her weakness. Then what? Jackson asked. It's your money, Sol. No, it's not, I said. It's Josiah's, and it was never meant for me. It was meant to fix a problem. Ryan Cunningham was the problem, but he left other victims behind. I slid one of the folders from the trial across the table. Those other people. The old couple who lost their retirement. The young woman who lost her inheritance. Ryan's other victims. How much did he take from them? Jackson checked his notes. Our estimates. About $300,000 all told. But it's gone, Saul. He gambled it away. Find them, I said. Find every last one of them. Take the money from the sale of the Hilton Head Villa, and you pay them back. Every single cent, with interest. Andre and Jackson just stared at me. Sir, Andre said softly, that's incredibly generous, but it's not your responsibility. You don't owe them anything. Josiah hunted financial predators. I said, my voice quiet. That was his life's work. His name is on this money. I will not have his legacy or the Williams family name tainted by the filth Ryan left behind. This isn't generosity, Andre. This is sanitation. We are cleaning the mess. Pay them all. Jackson nodded slowly, a look of deep respect on his face. It will be done, Saul, but that still leaves a significant amount of money and the 2 Atlanta apartments. Yes, I said. Now we talk about Maya. I looked at Jackson. I want you to set up a trust, the Serafina Williams Trust. I want it to be ironclad. I want it to be impenetrable. What are the terms? Jackson asked, his pen ready. She gets one of the apartments, the smaller one, the one we were in the other night. The deed is in the trust's name. not hers. She can live there rent-free for the rest of her life, but she can never sell it. She can never borrow against it. It is a roof, not an asset. And she will receive a monthly stipend, enough to live on, but not enough to be rich. Enough for groceries, utilities, and a bus pass. $2,000 a month. Nothing more. She will have to get a job if she wants anything extra. That's a very structured form of help, Saul, Jackson said carefully. It's the only help she understands, I said. I spent 40 years giving her unconditional love and it almost destroyed her. From now on, she gets unconditional support. Her love, her respect, those are things she is going to have to earn back, just like a normal person. I left her on the floor of that empty penthouse. I went into the second bedroom, a room as vast and cold as the first, and I closed the door. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the floor, my back against the glass, and watched the lights of Atlanta until the sun came up. She was still in the living room when I walked out the next morning. She hadn't moved from the spot on the floor. She was just a heap of expensive ruined sequins. She looked up when she heard me. Her eyes were swollen, her face a mess of old dried tears and smeared makeup. She looked defeated. "Dad," her voice was a dry rasp. "Get up, Maya," I said. My voice wasn't angry anymore. It was just tired. "Go wash your face. We have work to do." "Work," she whispered, as if the word was foreign to her. "Jackson will be here in 1 hour," I said. "With the papers. I suggest you make yourself presentable." An hour later, Jackson arrived. He walked in nodding to me and placed his heavy briefcase on the marble floor. He didn't sit. There was nowhere to sit. Maya was standing by the window, her arms wrapped around herself. She had washed her face, but she still looked like a ghost in a party dress. "Mrs. Cunningham," Jackson said. His voice was formal, all business. "Your father has asked me to explain the terms of the arrangement he has structured for you." Maya looked at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of fear, the fear of the unknown. "Arrangement? What arrangement? I have nothing. Ryan took everything. The house is gone. My savings are gone." She looked at me, her voice a raw whisper. "You said I lost everything." "You did," I said, my voice firm. "You lost everything you had. You lost the life you built on lies. You lost your husband. You lost your savings." I walked over and stood in front of her. "But you are still my daughter, and you were Serafina's daughter. I will not let you be homeless. But Maya, I will never let you be weak again." Jackson stepped forward, opening a new crisp folder. "Your father has established the Serafina Williams Trust. It has been funded by the non-liquidated assets from the Josiah Williams estate." A small pathetic flicker of hope lit Maya's eyes, the kind of hope I was about to extinguish for good. "A trust so... money." "No," I said flatly. The word was a slap. "You will never have direct access to my wealth, Maya. Not my money from TechSec and not the money from Josiah. You have proven beyond any doubt that you are incapable of handling it. You have proven that you are a target. You have proven that you will give it all away to the first man who tells you a convincing lie. You will not be rewarded for that." "Then what is it?" she cried, the tears starting again. "What's the point? This is just another punishment." "This is not a punishment, Maya," Jackson said, his voice cutting through her hysterics. "This is a foundation. It is not a windfall. The trust will provide you with 2 things." He held up one finger. "First, this apartment, the one you are standing in. The deed is held by the trust, not by you. You may live here rent-free for as long as you live, but you can never sell it. You can never leverage it. You cannot borrow against it. It is a roof, Maya. It is not an asset. It is a home should you choose to finally learn what that word means." He held up a second finger. "Second, a monthly stipend, $2,000. It will be deposited into a new account that I will oversee. It is enough to cover utilities, food, and basic transportation. It is not enough to be rich. It is not enough for new sequin dresses or expensive restaurants. It is a floor, Maya, not a ceiling." Maya stared at him, then at me. She was processing the numbers. $2,000 a month, she whispered, horrified. "Dad, that's nothing in this city. I can't live on that." "I started with nothing," I said, my voice hard. "Your mother and I built our lives on less. $2,000 is a gift. It is a safety net you never had to earn. Everything else, you will get a job. You will earn it yourself. You will finally learn at 38 years old what it feels like to pay for your own life. She shook her head, the old habits of dependence, the habits I had allowed dying hard. A job doing what Dad. What can I do? I don't have any skills. Ryan handled everything. Ryan handled nothing. I boomed, my voice finally rising. He stole. He was a parasite, and you let him feed on you and on me. You have a college degree, Maya, a degree that I paid for. You are smart, you are capable. You just chose not to be. You chose to be a passenger in your own life. I took a deep breath, reining in the anger. I knelt down. For the first time since that night, I looked her in the eyes, father to daughter. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. I will not give you access to my wealth, Maya. I will not let you become the person your mother and I were so afraid of. A spoiled, weak heir just waiting for a handout. Your mother wanted you to be strong. I failed her. I failed you. I protected you too much. I hid my own strength, and in doing so I taught you that weakness was acceptable. I taught you that it was okay to be saved. I stood up, my knees cracking. That ends today. The free ride is over. This is your one and only chance. You stand up on your own 2 feet or you fall. There is no one else to catch you. She looked down at her hands, at the glittering, ruined dress she was still wearing from the night before. She was silent for a long time. A job. She whispered the word, tasting like ash in her mouth. Doing what? I smiled. It was a very small smile, but it was the first sign of hope I'd felt. It was the first time she hadn't argued or cried or made an excuse. It was the first real question she had asked. I am establishing a foundation with the rest of Josiah's money, I said. The Williams Josiah Foundation. It will be dedicated to helping the other victims. The victims of financial fraud, the people Ryan created. I looked at her, my gaze unwavering. I need an assistant, someone to file papers, someone to answer phones, someone to get coffee. The pay is terrible. The hours are long. You will start at the very, very bottom. You will earn your own money. You will earn your own respect. And maybe, just maybe, you'll earn back mine. I held out my hand. I didn't offer to pull her up. I offered her a choice. Do you want the job, Maya? She looked at my outstretched hand. She looked at the empty, echoing penthouse that was now her home and her cage. She looked at the life she had lost. And then she looked at the future I was offering, a future that was hard but was real. She didn't cry. She just nodded. She put her small, trembling hand in mine, and she used her own strength to pull herself finally to her feet. Yes, Dad, she whispered. Her voice was cracked, but it was firm. Yes, I'll take the job. 1 year later. I am 70 years old. I am not in the guest room. I am sitting at the head of a 20-foot polished mahogany table. The view from this boardroom on the 40th floor of the TechSec Tower is a panoramic sweep of the Atlanta skyline. I am not the shuffling, pathetic old man in the worn-out wool suit. Today I am wearing a custom Italian suit of dark charcoal. It feels strange, like armor, but it is the necessary uniform for this new chapter of my life. Across the table from me sit 10 people. They are lawyers, forensic accountants, and sharp-eyed financial analysts. They are the board of directors for the Williams Josiah Foundation. This is my brother's true legacy. This is my new life's work. A young analyst, a woman with a mind as sharp as a scalpel, is presenting. Mr. Williams, our target for this quarter is a shell corporation based in Delaware. They are actively targeting seniors in Florida using a high-yield real estate scam that guarantees impossible returns. By our estimate, they've already stolen over $4 million. I look at the presentation screen. I see the flowcharts. I see the complex, tangled web of lies. It's the same pattern I saw with Ryan. The same greed, just a different predator. Ryan was a small, sloppy animal. These men are sharks. I hold up a hand. The analyst stops mid-sentence. Where is their money? My voice is clear. It does not shake. It is the voice I use to command a lecture hall. The voice of a man who knows the answers. The analyst points to the screen. We've traced the primary holding account to the Cayman Islands, sir. It's locked down tight. We can't touch it without a full SEC intervention, which could take years. I turn my gaze to the end of the table. Andre Thompson, my protege, my CEO, The kid I gave $50,000 to in a Waffle House just smiles. He is, as always, one step ahead. It's already handled, Sol. He calls me Saul now. He says we are partners. We acquired a controlling interest in the Cayman bank they use. It was a quiet acquisition finalized last Tuesday. As of 9 a.m. this morning, my team has frozen every asset related to that shell corporation. They are, as of this moment, completely broke. The room nods. This is what we do. We don't just sue predators. We hunt them. We use the same sophisticated financial tools they use to hide, but we use them to dismantle their empires. Josiah, my brother, taught me that. His files were a masterclass in financial warfare. I stand up. Good. Seize the funds, liquidate every asset, and I want you to start the process of paying back every single victim, starting with the oldest and most vulnerable. I want those checks cut by Friday. The board members gather their papers, a quiet murmur of, "Yes, Mr. Williams. I am not a teacher anymore. I am not a burden. I am the man my brother knew I could be. I am a hunter, and I have found my purpose." The meeting ends. The lawyers and analysts file out, already whispering about the next target. I stay in the boardroom looking out the window at the city below. The door opens quietly behind me. "Mr. Williams." I turn. It's Maya. She is not the woman in the glittering sequin dress. She is not the weeping broken girl from the penthouse floor. She is wearing a simple black skirt, a pressed white blouse, and sensible flat shoes. Her hair is pulled back in a neat bun. She is holding a stack of files. She looks tired. But for the first time in her life, she looks present. "The victim impact statements you asked for," she says, placing the files neatly on the mahogany table. "The 3 cases from last week. They are all signed and notarized." "Thank you, Maya. She works for me. She works for the foundation. When I offered her the job, I was not kind. I was blunt. You will be an administrative assistant," I had told her, standing in that empty penthouse. "You will file papers. You will answer phones. You will get my coffee. You will earn minimum wage. You will be the first one in and the last one to leave. And you will learn." I had expected her to refuse. I expected her to cry, to tell me it was beneath her. She had just looked at me, her eyes red, but her gaze steady. "Yes, Dad. Thank you for the chance." And then for 1 year, she has done exactly that. She arrives at 7 a.m. She leaves at 6 p.m. She sorts the mail. She listens to the tearful, frantic phone calls from other victims, from people just like she was, people fooled by men just like her husband. She takes notes. She types up reports. She has never been late. She has never complained. "How is the divorce proceeding?" I ask her. My voice is softer now that we are alone. She looks down, but not in shame, in exhaustion. It's almost final. Ryan, he tried to fight it. From prison. He tried to claim half of my trust fund. The Serafina Trust is ironclad, Maya. Jackson made sure of that. He can't touch a penny. "I know," she says. "He knows that now. He finally signed the papers last week. He sent me a letter." I raise an eyebrow. "Oh." "It was what you would expect," she says, her voice flat. "He hates me. He blames me. He blames you. He blames Josiah. He said he'll get us when he gets out." "He is a pathetic man, Maya. His threats are as empty as his bank accounts. He will be in there for a long time." "I know that now," she says quietly. "The strange thing is, I don't hate him. I don't feel anything for him at all. I just feel embarrassed. Embarrassed that I was ever that blind. Embarrassed that I let myself be that weak." "You are not weak anymore," I say. She looks up at me. "I'm learning. It's hard, but I'm learning." She picks up her empty coffee mug. "I'm going on my lunch break." "Good," I say, grabbing my own jacket from the chair. "I'll join you." She looks surprised. I don't usually join her. "Oh, okay. Where do you want to go?" "That new Italian place downstairs. It's supposed to be good." I shake my head. "No, I was thinking of something better. My treat." We do not go to Livray. We do not go to any restaurant with white tablecloths or French wine lists. We walk 2 blocks down past the glass skyscrapers and into a small hole-in-the-wall diner, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a Formica countertop, the kind of place where the waitress calls everyone honey, the kind of place Serafina and I used to go on Saturdays back when we were just a teacher and a nurse. We slide into a booth. The waitress, a woman about my age with a kind, tired face, slaps down 2 menus. "What'll it be, folks?" "I'll have the number 3, I say. The 2-egg special scrambled, and a black coffee. Maya looks at the menu. She doesn't look at the prices, she just looks at the food. "I'll have the same," she says. We sit in silence for a moment. It's not the heavy, angry silence of the penthouse. It's a comfortable silence. "I got a letter today," she says quietly, stirring her water with a spoon. "From Capital One." I raise an eyebrow, waiting. "It wasn't a foreclosure notice," she says. A small, tiny smile plays on her lips. "It was a letter, congratulating me. I finally paid it off. The last of the credit card debt. The $25,000 Ryan ran up in my name." She looks up at me and her eyes are clear. They are not the terrified, crying eyes I saw in the restaurant. They are not the dead, hollow eyes I saw in the penthouse. They are the eyes of my daughter. "I did it with my salary," she says. Her voice is almost a whisper, but it is the strongest I have ever heard it. "Every paycheck. I took half of it and I sent it to them. For 11 months. It's gone. It's finally over." I look at her, my daughter, the woman who had to lose everything to find herself, the woman who started at the very bottom and was for the first time in her life standing on her own. I nod slowly. I let a real smile touch my face. "Good job, Maya. That's very good." I pause and then I say the words I know she needs to hear, the words she has been waiting a year for. "I knew you could do it." A single tear rolls down her cheek, but it's not a tear of sadness. It's a tear of release. She quickly, almost angrily, wipes it away. "Thank you, Dad." The waitress brings our food, simple eggs, toast, black coffee. Maya looks at me. For the first time, she is not looking at a burden. She is not looking at an ATM. She is not even looking at a CEO. She is looking at her father. She is looking at her mentor. I lost the shuffling, pathetic image of the old man in the guest room. But as I sit here in this cheap diner watching my daughter eat the first meal she truly earned for herself, I realize I finally, after all these years, got my daughter back. I pick up my coffee mug. It's hot. It's real. And it is more than enough. This story teaches a powerful two-sided lesson. On one side, it shows that people who judge others by their bank accounts like Ryan did are often the ones with the least moral worth. But on the other, it is a lesson for parents like me. My attempt to protect Maya from the curse of wealth by hiding it only made her weak and desperate. I didn't teach her strength. I taught her to survive on little, making her a perfect victim for a man who promised her everything. True love isn't just protecting your children, it's preparing them to face the world strong and honest. What do you think of the lesson Maya had to learn? And have you ever been underestimated just because of how you looked? Let me know your story in the comments below.